Right, Barella. Let's go with Barella then. So, a couple of things that we need to know about Barella. Miguel Delaney has said that Liverpool are interested. So that's sort of good news, right? But then you have to follow on from that when you see that Inter Milan want about £80 million for Nicolo Barella. And I think that's a little bit on the high side. Not too far out of the realms of realism, but a little bit on the high side. We also know that Chelsea are interested in Barella. But here's where I get a little bit confused, my friends. Why is that too expensive for us? Genuinely, why is that too expensive? I mean, 80 million is the asking offer. That's fair enough. You start off with about 60, 65 and see where you go from there. The fact that we can't afford to potentially go and sign a 65, 70 million pound ready to go midfielder who we're clear admirers of, who we've seen operate at the very highest level, both at club and country, is a travesty, and it is a joke. It is a joke that we're accepting this. It's a joke that it's been rammed down our throats. We should be getting them. Especially if it's between us, Chelsea and Newcastle. And Newcastle look like they're sort of shying away because the price is escalating, and that's understandable. But if it's between us and Chelsea, we're a better alternative. We're a much better option for Barella than Chelsea. One, we have a stable manager who's been at the club for years. We can at least offer him some European football, albeit his talent should be in the Champions League, but that's where we should be also. And also, it's not that big an amount. It's not ridiculous. It's not 100 million. It's not 120 million. It's 60 to 70 million. Don't tell me that we can't afford that. And we're going to move on to perhaps why we aren't able to afford it in a while. But did you guys know that Liverpool are still looking for investment, and that search is ongoing, and that search is looking like it will drag on into the summer? Now my question is, if indeed FSG are still looking for investment, one, why aren't they fronting us the money? Why aren't they taking a bridging loan or any other type of loan or facility to give the manager the money? Because you know what might happen, and you know what we're expecting to happen? This to drag on to the end of the window, and it to go down in the very, very, very long list of John W. Henry and FSG excuses as to how a window passes us by. Make no mistake about it. This was the big window. This is the one we have to operate in. And I'm not saying we don't do business. But what I'm saying is, as fans, vocal fans right now, we have to let it be known that there is a standard that we're expecting this summer. That there is a level of recruitment that we're expecting this summer. And don't let anybody tell you you're greedy. And don't let anybody tell you you're away with the fairies. Liverpool should be able to go out there and sign Nicolo Barella, McAllister, and another midfielder. Even if it's Nicolo Barella and McAllister and we move Trent into midfield, still absolutely fine. But there's no reason why we can't afford it. The only reason is the owner. Now you guys need to be active. You guys need to be vocal. And you guys need to put the pressure on FSG to start acting like a bigger club. Now I'm going to continue on this conversation with an article that you guys can read yourselves at liverpool.com if you want to go and check it out. There's a good piece up on there that speaks about Liverpool's situation with these owners, and I'm going to go into it in a little bit more detail now. So David Comerford is the author of the piece, and he said, according to figures from The Athletic, Liverpool ranks 19th in the Premier League for net owner funding over the last 5 years at, are you ready for this? Minus £37 million. So Liverpool's owners have cost us £37 million rather than given us £37 million. That doesn't sound like an owner that wants to win. That doesn't sound like an owner that wants to actually go and compete. Now, David has written a piece, and it's there at liverpoolfc.com for you to check it out, or liverpool.com, check it out yourselves. He looks at it and what it might mean to the Reds in a crucial summer. That is unacceptable on any level. That our ownership are taking out 37 million for whatever reason more than they've put in over the last 5 years. Look, come on now. Look, I know I'm not a money guy, far from it, but that's just pathetic. That there's no way a generational manager like Jurgen Klopp is going to be able to compete in a world if that's what he has to work with. We've seen Chelsea today alone sign Christopher Nkunku in a deal that was agreed previously for the €60 million release clause in his contract. We've seen them spend £600 million. Today, we've seen Arsenal have a bid of £90 million rejected for Declan Rice. We've seen Arsenal start putting forward a bid for Kai Havertz. And we've also seen Arsenal being linked to Timber. And I'll go on to talk about that in more detail in the future. But this is just getting ridiculous now. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm not ranting. I'm going to try and be calm about this because it is honestly pathetic. Like, they're two contradictory things. You can't tell us the club needs to be self-sustaining and then us find out that our net owner funding is minus 37 million over 5 years. Like, Liverpool Football Club should be able to do realistic business. A couple of 100 million this summer was supposed to be achievable. But as this window drags on, and I'm starting to read stuff about Liverpool's search for investment dragging on into the summer, you got to start asking the tough questions about, are we ever going to see this investment? Are we ever going to see the manager get the ability to go out there? Or will we once again see another summer where promises get watered down as the summer goes on, excuses start to come forward, and we get told, no Champions League football, no Spondulics? I would argue we've got no Champions League football because our owners haven't invested in midfield, and that Jurgen Klopp can only pull so many rabbits out of hats. The man can only do so much. He needs to be backed. And all the signs are that we're going for the cheapskate window again. Nothing wrong with getting players for good money. But when you have somebody like Barella clearly available, you should be making a move. Not asking, is it going to be him or is it going to be a youngster from Celta Vigo, Gabri Veiga, who could be a very good player, but there's a chance here of a proven quality operator. And one thing on Gabri Veiga, Rafael Benitez is about to become the new Celta Vigo manager. Now, I'm not saying that that will have any sway over what happens with Gabri Veiga, but it's not going to do us any harm, is it? So basically, I want to pose that opening question tonight. Do you think that FSG have any intention of going and following through to try and get Klopp or Barella? Or do you think all along that this was going to be the smoke and mirrors, the charlatans at work yet again, with big promises, but very, very little by delivering Jurgen Klopp stars? You can't compete anymore. And if you can't compete FSG, just admit it, sell up and move on. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You don't always have to have the deepest pockets in the world. But football has unfortunately moved on to a new era. An era where money is needed. Whatever we think, we all want to operate within our means. We all want the club to be sustainable. But I think they're taking that to an extreme. Liverpool and debt is not a dirty word. Debt in football is not always a dirty word. Liverpool can go out there and spend. We can do it. Our owners just choose not to. And therein lies the difference. And therein is what makes me really, really angry. And I'm sure you guys as well. So to start off tonight, let me know. What are you saying about Barella? Do you think there's any chance in hell that Liverpool could go in there and compete with Chelsea? Because if you're looking at it from a purely FFP thing, how did Chelsea have the money to do it? I know that they have this really convenient outlet to just ship them off to Saudi Arabia. And we'll talk about that in more detail later on in the stream, by the way, because there could be an investigation coming over those moves. But that's for another time. So to open up tonight, let me know your thoughts. Barella, what should Liverpool look to do? Veiga, is he going to be good enough, or do you think he'll be muscled out by Chelsea? And also, what's happening with Thuram? That's gone very, very quiet. You know, we were told Thuram or Kone. I'd like to believe it's now Barella or Thuram. And that's a far better duo for me to be arguing over. So over to you guys now. Let us know what you think. Again, appreciate your support and appreciate your comments. Right, no way is the comment straight away in the chat. No way we're getting Barella. I don't believe we get Barella, says Rut TV. Does that not make you all sad, though? Like, genuinely, does that not make you sad? That we can't afford a player for 65, 70 million? You know, we've gone from expecting Bellingham to not being able to afford somebody half the price of Bellingham, probably on half the wages. That doesn't add up to me. But maybe I'm deluded. Well, I'm definitely deluded, but maybe I'm deluded more so thinking about this. Not a hope FSG are going to do the right thing this summer, said Canters. I can't see a world where FSG bought Bellingham. I think they knew that all along. FSG can compete, but they don't want to, said Mentality Monster. James Legend said, FSG are so tight, it's not like they're poor. It's not a risk anymore for them to spend money. We know we can win trophies when we get the right players in. And that's what makes it even more infuriating, dude. You're absolutely spot on. We have a manager that's a proven track record. You give the manager the money and he gets the results. Like, if they can't give it to Kloppo, there's no manager on God's green earth that they're going to suddenly think can do a better job spending money than Jurgen. So if they're not giving it to Kloppo, what does the future hold? Because they are wasting the years of a generational manager for us. They are wasting them. Make no mistake about it. They're absolutely pissing away years. Last season was one that I believe was openly admitted that they nearly just wanted to just allow a season to go by, waste a year, waiting around, do nothing. You don't get to waste a year. You don't get to waste a year when you're buying your season tickets or your jerseys or when you're paying for your Sky or BT subscriptions. But our owners can, because for them, there's just money coming in, the value of the club going up. Pressure needs to start being put on them. We need everybody to come together and speak up. It doesn't matter if you think FSG overall have been good. I get that. I can understand that. But this is important. This is a big, big summer. And we can't allow it to just drift by. We just can't. Would much rather Thuram for 45 million than Barella. I mean, I was going to give you a snarky answer, Ethan, but it's your opinion. You're entitled to it. Yeah, I mean, that's your opinion, mate. You're entitled to it. What do you think of the Gravenberch links again? I think that our owners are just cheap fucks. We shouldn't look. I'm not here to run down Ryan Gravenberch. I'm not. But I'm also not convinced in any way, shape or form that 25 or 30 million quid Gravenberch is going to be a difference maker. If he was, and if he was that highly thought of and regarded without the world, through the world of football, why aren't other clubs clamouring over themselves? Why aren't they throwing money at Bayern Munich if they're willing to sell? Why aren't your Manchester Cities, your Chelseas, your Arsenals, your Manchester Uniteds, your whomever? Why aren't they all tripping over themselves to sign the kid? Something doesn't add up for me. And it feels like they've looked at it and they've gone, he could become a very good player. He could tick a lot of boxes and he is very cheap. That's not the SWOT analysis that I want to look at. I want to make sure that, yes, we can afford them to a certain extent, but most importantly, they're the right players in the right time, for the right system, for the right manager, and they're ready to go. This kid isn't ready to go. This kid is going to be a project that could come good, but he isn't ready to go because he's played fuck all football over the last season at Bayern Munich. Yes, we spent like a mid-table team or lower, and we're still expected to compete at the top. Yeah. I mean, this is like Groundhog Day for me, you know. I'm on here reading the same stuff every day, talking the same stuff every day. But I'm glad. I feel like the tide's turning a little bit. I really do. I feel like there's a lot more fans now and a lot more articles starting to question the gospel according to FSG. XX Dark, thank you, mate, for subbing with Prime. Appreciate you. Danny said, under FA rules, owners are allowed to pump in 100 million of their own money over 3 years. How much have FSG pumped in over 12 years? Zero. No, mate. I'll give you one better, like I mentioned earlier on in this piece, that we're minus 35. So they've taken 35 back from whatever, rather than investing in 5 years. So in 5 years, we are minus 35 million from our owners. Not plus 100 million, like you've said. And that in itself gives you an insight into what's important to them. Pound notes, nothing else. And the only thing that they understand is negative PR and the bottom line. And we can't really affect the bottom line as fans. We can to some extent, by maybe not buying things when you go to the stadium or whatever. But ultimately, negative PR is what they hate. And that's what we can affect. That's what we can impact. That's what we can do as fans, is just let it be known that this shit isn't acceptable. But Craig, FSG saved us. Have you ever been to Anfield? If you want trophies, go support City. These top reds are just robots. But as I said, mate, I think the tide's starting to turn a little bit. You know, when you see articles like that gentleman that we spoke about there earlier on, what's his name, David or somebody? The guy who wrote the piece on... let me just get the guy's name up. David Comerford. When you see articles like David asking very fair questions about how Liverpool are ranked 19th in the Premier League for net owner funding over the last 5 years. I guess it's a fair question that David has asked. The Athletic have spoke about the money side of it as well. So maybe the tide is starting to turn a little bit. And maybe bit by bit we can win some more fans back around. Because look, I'm not an idiot. I know a lot of people think I am. I know sometimes I rant and I rave. But I'm also here to give credit to our owners for the good things they've done. I've always tried to do that. But I'm not a fool. I don't see one thing with my own eyes, get told another thing and believe it. I question everything. And the question that I have for anybody who's a supporter of FSG is, do you think that they are doing everything that they can? Do you think that they are really leaving no stone unturned? Because I don't. Andy LFC said, I'm resigned to McAllister being our only signing. Just a repeat of the window. Great start and then nothing. So I'm very pessimistic, Andy, about our owners, dude. Very pessimistic. But even in my most pessimistic moment, I don't think they're brazen enough to do that, pal. I don't. I don't think that they're that bad, that they'll only sign... Like, there will be uproar if that was the case. Like, there's no defending them if that's the case. Even the most ardent FSG apologist couldn't defend that. So what are FSG doing with all the money? Has anyone told you you can't take it with you? When I don't know what they're doing with the money, because we're not their only interest. And that worries me. That worries me a lot. So it's one thing to look at a group that own a load of football clubs. Because if you... Let's say FSG were somewhat like the City Group, the Red Bull Group, or one of these type of groups that have feeder clubs or smaller clubs. At least you know you're at the tip of that. You're at the pinnacle. You're at the top of that pyramid. That everything else is set up to get the best for you. Players go out on loan. If they're good enough, they come through. Everything's set up to keep you at the top. That's not the case with us. When you've got owners that own the Red Sox, that own the Penguins, that own us, that own newspapers, that own a racing team, you have to question where the fucking enthusiasm is and where the genuine want is, the desire is for us to do well. The desire is for them to turn over more money. The desire is to keep raising the value of the football club. But is there a desire to win? I don't think so.